Hey guys, welcome back to Home Built, and this week I'm going to take a little bit of a break from doing some body work and let's go back over and have a look at this engine. Okay guys, so this week I thought I needed a bit of a break from body work. I still have plenty to do. It's definitely not the end of it, but I got my engine back, yes! And here is my, I got my head and my block just down here on the floor. So there's still some work to do on them, and I'm going to take you through some of that right now. All right, so here I've got my head, and those of you who know what they're looking at here will notice there's something missing. There's no water galleries on this head, because what I actually had is when I took this to the engine builder, he showed me around these the water galleries, and there was actually quite a bit of corrosion around the edges of the water gallery. Some was actually even creeping in close to the head. And basically what the suggestion was, and what I had done, is I had all of the holes welded up. And now what I need to do is I need to get I've got my gasket kit. I need to get my head gasket out and lay it over the top, and then re-drill out all the water galleries. Before I put the head gasket on here, I'm just going to give it a bit of a clean up with some brake cleaner just to make sure it's nice and clean, because I don't want to contaminate my head gasket taking it on and off all the time. And yeah, we'll go from there. All right, so I've cleaned it all up and I've got the head gasket sitting on here. I don't actually have the dowels that are supposed to go into here. Obviously, I never actually removed them. They were obviously really badly corroded when I pulled the engine apart, so I don't have them anymore. But I've got this sitting on nice and square now where I want it to be. So now I'm going to go around with a texter and mark out all of the spots where I want to drill out. Just draw around all the water galleries, and then it's time to drill them out. So now I've marked out all the holes on the top of the head, or the bottom of the head if you like. Now I need to go through and I need to set up my drill press so that I can do reasonably neat holes. Now, this is not a terribly important part. It's not something that needs to be super precisely machined. So as the machinist said, he could have done it, but it was extra time, and and I thought it would be a fun little project to try and do a little bit at home here myself. So all right, so now I've got to try and set up my drill press to try and get this all flat and level so that I can start drilling out some holes. All right, I got my crusty old drill press out and set up with a nice and flat to the bench. I've got a couple of blocks of wood either side holding up the head, and I made sure I left it on the cardboard, so I'm not going to do any damage to any faces. So now I'm just going to go through and with my punch mark out the center of all the holes I want to drill, and then start drilling. All right, so this is where I just ran forward and assumed without actually looking further into things. So I just marked out all of the holes that weren't bolt holes on the head gasket onto the head to drill them out as water galleries. And I'm drilling through this, and I'm expecting it only to be a very thin layer. And I've gone through about maybe 4 mil down there, and I haven't gone through, and I'm thinking, is there actually a water gallery there or not? And then I thought, hang on, how about I actually go over and check on the block and see how many of these actual holes that I've marked out are actually water galleries. And it looks like not too many of them. So I kept my head gasket in its plastic sleeve, but I lay it over the top of the block, and I realized that there aren't that many of the water galleries that are actually water galleries. So what I've got to do now is actually go through and work out the real water galleries. As you can see, a lot of these, like this top edge, I don't know if you can see it through the plastic, there's holes the whole way along the top edge, but there's almost no holes through to the block from that top edge. There's a few tiny little ones, but nowhere near the same number of holes as what I've just marked out on my head. So I need to go through, work out which one's which, where they are, transfer that from the block onto the head, and then just drill out those holes. So now I've gone through and I've lined up and made sure I've got all of the right holes that correspond, the head corresponds with the block. There are a couple of extra holes in the block that don't have holes in the head gasket for it. So at this stage I'm going to leave them blocked off. I'll find out if I should open them up, if I should cut out the head gasket, but I don't really want to touch the head gasket, so I'm tempted to leave it. Another note is this hole that I thought was nothing is actually a hole, so I've got to keep drilling. So anyway, let's start drilling. And now I'm really lost and I have no idea what's going on. I'll show you what I've been doing, but I've drilled and I cannot find water galleries. Like, I'm drilling down and they're going down deeper than I would thought and still no water. I'll show you what I mean here. I don't know how well you can see that, but like that hole is probably about 6 mil deep. Same with this one here, it's about another 6 mil deep, and it hasn't hit any water galleries yet. So now I'm really scratching my head because I can't find where the water galleries actually are. I think I have to go and do some research and come back. I mean, I don't want to just randomly drill all these holes in the block that aren't, holes in the head that aren't actually supposed to be in there. So I think I need to do a bit more research and maybe go back and have a look at some of the photos of this head and see where the holes were to try and drill them out again. Well, it is very handy filming all of this stuff because I can go back to my old videos and I've actually got a picture of the head before I sent it away here that I've freeze framed. So now I can go through and actually have a look at where the holes were and where they weren't. And some of these holes, there were holes there, so I'm just not drilling deep enough. So more drilling. So I did find the holes. They were just drilled up a lot deeper than I thought. So anyway, I've gone through with this smaller, I think it's about a 4.5 mil drill bit, and I'm going to step it up now to larger sizes to sort of match in the holes that I'm after, and yeah, move on. So you can see my mangled holes here, but I'm going to have to go in with the die grinder and just clean that one up. But my drill bits are obviously not that sharp and they're not leaving the nicest, cleanest holes, but I'll just go around the top edges of these and tidy them up. But they're drilled through to the water galleries, as you can see there. So yeah, with a dead drill press, my next job will be coming around to these parts here, and you can see where he's welded up there. I don't know if you can, if it's getting it with that light. Let's see if I can brighten it up a bit. There you go. You can see these where he's welded up inside of the inlet runners, and I'm going to go through now and just clean them up and port them out and make them look nice. So now I've loosely bolted down the manifold gasket onto the side of the head. And the reason for that is I'm going to now trace around using the gasket, trace around all of the inlet and exhaust ports so that I can actually match them to the size so that it gets a nice smooth flow in and out. My basic idea with this porting job is I'm not going to town. This is not going to be a crazy high horsepower race engine. This is going to be a nice warm street engine. I've actually got a, I already have it here. This is a 72 degree cam that's going in it, and I have triple OER carbs that are going on it as well. So it's going to be nice and warm, but it's not going to be crazy. But yeah, the basic principle behind porting an engine, if you've ever heard of it and you don't actually know what it is these are essentially the ports. So these are the exhaust ports, these square ones at the back, and these are the inlet ports, the round ones here. And what I've got to go through and do is just smooth out the sides of it. Now, apparently you don't want them super smooth and polished, at least not on the inlet, because the slightly rough finish is it's like dimples on a golf ball and helps it the air flow through as opposed to being perfectly smooth. But apparently with the exhaust port you can go as smooth as you like. I'm going to go through now and draw around the gasket all the way around, so then I have my marks, and then I just need to grind out to the marks. Alright, so I've marked out all of my holes from my gasket onto my head, and the basic principle is to get a nice smooth flow from the exhaust through past the gasket and into the head so that they're all the exact same size. And then do the same when I get my intake manifold and my exhaust manifold. Put the gasket on there as well, mark out around the gasket again the other way, and that way there'll be a nice smooth transition. It won't be sort of one hole big, one hole small, or different sizes or offset. They'll all be nice and smooth and lined up, so you get a nice smooth transition of air, and the smoother the air goes in and out of the engine, the more power you make. So that's the basic principle. I just jumped on eBay and got myself one of these porting kits, which are just little they're just little cylinders of sandpaper, basically. While I'm there, as you can see here, you can see the seam running inside of the port. So I'm just going to go through and clean up all of these little seams that are all through here, so that it's just all nice and as smooth as it can be. And yeah, that's my basic, simple street porting job. That is really time consuming, and these only had a very slight amount of trimming needed around the edges of the ports. These need a fair bit more, so what I'm actually going to do, as you can see, there's a lot of black around these. I'm going to come in with the carbide burr first and yeah, clean it out, get it out close, and then finishing up with the sandpaper rolls. Just want to try and get a nice smooth transition in there, so slow and time consuming. You have to be really careful, but it's getting there. That is very slow and tedious work, and I've had to stop because the burr is completely clogged up with aluminium. So I've just gone and done a bit of research on how to clean it out. Some guys suggested heating it up. I don't really like the idea of heating them up because these burrs are quite expensive for what they are, and yeah, I don't want to kill it. I mean, I can sit there and I can pick it all off, but that's really slow and tedious. What I might try is putting it in a drill, spin it in reverse in the drill with a wire brush and see if I can sort of flick all the bits out. We'll give that a go and see if it works. All right, that didn't work. I'm going to try heat. But my torch was just not hot enough to loosen up the aluminium, so I went back to my good old sanding rolls. It's not bad, it's not perfect. I can probably do a bit more. I did it from the other angle, so I'm looking up now and I can sort of see the top of some of these things could use a bit more work. But I'm happy. That was really time consuming, playing around trying to get the burr unpacked and unclogged. It really feels like I didn't do a lot today, but I've been flat out all day and I'm just out of time. So, I mean, that means it's time for Fun Facts with Mrs. Jeff.
Hi guys. In Australia, Peter Brock is synonymous with touring car racing and winning Bathurst a record 9 times. In the US, there is a very different Peter Brock associated with motor racing. The American Brock was known for being the designer of the original Corvette Stingray and designing for Shelby. In 1965, Brock went out on his own and he started Brock Racing Enterprises, or BRE. BRE started racing Hinos, but when Toyota took over and gave the whole deal to Carroll Shelby, Peter Brock offered his services to Datsun, and that was the very start of Datsun racing in the US.
All right, guys, that is it for another week. That was actually quite interesting. There's still some more work to do on this head, finishing up the porting, etc. But it's my first attempt at porting, and yeah, I think it's something you just need to take some time and work at it slowly. It's time consuming, but at least it's not just bodywork again. So anyway.
Anyway guys, if you like the channel, please feel free to help us out by visiting the shop down below. And you can follow him on Facebook and Instagram.
See you guys. Gusto.
To the head gusto.
Much better.
Is it Hino or Hino or Hinos? 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 I think Hinos. Hinos? You can go behind me.